I'd like to call the meeting to order. Councilmember Tupola is excused. Councilmember Wire, would you like to introduce the message of Aloha speaker today?
Of course, thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome this morning Nahilani Parsons, who will be delivering the message of Aloha. Nahe is a government relations specialist with a long history of experience working on state and federal legislation. Many of us here know her through her advocacy across the street, and of course, she also currently serves as Executive Director of the Hawaii State Association of Counties. But more importantly, she is deeply rooted in the North Shore community, where her father, Barry, was raised and worked as a lifeguard. You may remember that we honored his life and legacy last month. Although she spent some time traveling and on the continent, she's recently returned to Hawaii with her husband, Blake, and two beautiful daughters, Malia and Anella. And just want to mahalo you for all your advocacy and your message of aloha today, and welcome you to the chamber. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Councilmember. Aloha, everyone. Today, I share a story of a father and a daughter and the struggles of loving someone with an addiction. So picture a young girl, her eyes are bright with excitement, as her father teaches her how to use a three-pronged spear to catch her very first fish. She follows closely behind him in the ocean, watching as he dives down to the deeper areas she cannot yet reach. He brings back the fish to skewer on the pole that she holds over her shoulder. A few years later, they had their first paddleboard race together. He decides that he's going to borrow a solid wooden ALOHA board, despite being told by his friend that it probably wasn't properly sealed, and it just might sink if it's in the water for more than 2 hours. No worries, said the father. He had completed the race in less than 40 minutes multiple times over the years. Well, it was about 4 hours later, the father-daughter duo is switching off every 15 minutes to paddle this sinking wooden board through the ocean. They finally make it across the finish line, and as there were only 2 boards entered in that division that day, they even got second place. But life isn't always filled with such light. There were darker days when addiction casts a shadow over their lives. Addiction can do a weird thing. It can disappear and give you quality time with that person that you know and you love, and then it can return in a flash and smother them to an unrecognizable thing. When she was 5 years old, her mother returned from a long shift working as a nurse at the North Community Hospital. She found the young girl sitting on the ground looking up at her and asking, "What does Daddy do with the needle and the spoon?" The girl's mother had reached a turning point where she was forced to take the young girl away from her father and move in with the grandparents. More recently, the daughter was visiting her dad once again, and he wasn't making a lot of sense. He was talking about the people that were hiding in the closet. He was talking about the bugs that were crawling on his skin. It was the ramblings of mental illness setting in after years of drug abuse. Despite these hardships, this story is not without hope. It's a reminder of the importance of love, even in the face of addiction. We must love one another through the darkest times, offering support and understanding. We must forgive ourselves and we must move on. We also need to recognize the necessity of making services more accessible, ensuring that those struggling with addiction and their families receive the help they need. As you may have figured out, this is my own story. My personal struggles helped my dad. I was the one who tried to hire paid caregivers, but it was so tough. The house he was in was a mess, and the active drug use made it unsafe for everyone. He didn't qualify for the mental health hospitals, despite having attacked a family member with his three-pronged spear while having hallucinations. And the substance abuse treatment centers were over an hour drive away, and you also had to want to go to them, which at times he did. He did want to go, but other times he didn't. My story is far too common. I'm sure many of you know someone with a similar experience. The system we have today has a major disconnect. We are failing to see the person underneath the addiction. We're failing to support the family who's trying so hard to help but doesn't know how. We need to do better. We can do better. Let's create more conversation around how to bridge this gap with real-world solutions. We must remember that this could be your father, or this could be you suffering from addiction. I wasn't able to get my dad the help he needed before he passed, but I'm committed to helping our community find better solutions. I hope I can count on your support. Mahalo.
Thank you, Nahe. Members, a few procedural announcements before we begin. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda, either in person, in the council chamber, or remotely. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and the agenda item they are testifying on. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 3-minute presentation on public hearing and new business items and a 1-minute presentation on all other items. Registered in-person testifiers will be called first. When your name is called, please proceed to the podium and begin by stating your name and the item you'll be speaking on. When I call for anyone who has not registered to speak in person, please line up to the right of the podium, and when it is your turn, proceed to the podium. Begin by stating your name and the items you'll be speaking on. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or telephone will then be called. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. When I call for anyone else standing by remotely, please utilize the Zoom raise hand button to indicate your desire to speak. For those joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceeding on Olelo, please mute your television when you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and telephone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Members, for your information, the following item was not posted on the agenda for consideration. On page 17, Resolution 24-78, proposed FD1, providing for the acquisition of access easements for public use to the Kalawao Pearl Ridge Bus Transfer Center and Mobility Hub located at Waimalu, Ewa, Oahu, Hawaii, and determining and declaring the necessity of acquisition by eminent domain. Copies are available at the City Clerk's office downstairs in room 203. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Councilmember Tupola is excused for the meeting. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cordero?
Here.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam?
Here.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Here.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Present.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Talba? Councilmember Tupola is excused. Councilmember Wire? Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, 7 members are present, 2 members are absent.
Thank you very much. Members, let's have a moment of silence for Aaron Mahi, former bandmaster for the Royal Hawaiian Band, and City Lifeguard Tamayo Perry. I'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the musicians of our Royal Hawaiian Band for their captivating performance this morning. Your mele has truly enriched our gathering. We have recently lost two notable members of our city and county of Honolulu, Ohana. I would like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge all of their contributions to our community. I'd like to recognize the passing of our former Royal Hawaiian Bandmaster, Aaron David Mahi, who just passed away a few days ago. Mr. Mahi served as our bandmaster from 1981 to 2005 and shepherded the Royal Hawaiian Band into the Hawaiian Music Hall of Fame. He was also awarded the prestigious German Order of Merit for perpetuating German music in the band. Our hearts go out to Bandmaster Mahi and his extended ohana. Also last month, we lost the City and County of Honolulu Ocean Safety Department member. I want to take time to acknowledge the passing of Honolulu lifeguard Tamayo Perry in a tragic accident on Oahu's North Shore. Mr. Perry dedicated his life to public service, saving many, many lives of locals and visitors alike, and we want to take a moment of silence to remember this courageous man as well. Please join me in the moment of silence. Thank you, members. Floor Leader Cordero, are there any guests this morning?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to welcome, in addition to members of our community and neighbors, also members of the neighborhood boards, as well as appointees and members of the city administration. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Kiaina, motion to approve the minutes?
I move that the minutes of the 22nd session be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, the minutes have been approved. Moving to the top of page 4, order of the day. From the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health, Councilmember Wire is not present. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Committee Report 210 and Resolution 24-126 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Cordero for the explanation.
This resolution relates to the appointment of Lance Wilhelm to serve on the Board of Water Supply of the City and County of Honolulu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilhelm. Thank you for being here this morning. Would you like to say a few words?
Aloha mai kako, o Lance Kiave Wilhelm Ko'o. I know it's a privilege, honor, and pleasure to be here. Chair Waters and members, we're taught at Kamehameha to whom much is given, much is expected, and if I can provide any service to our community through this service at Board of Water Supply, it's my privilege and honor to do so. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the nominee? Saying none. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, I believe we have Ernest Lau from the Board of Water Supply. He's in person, I believe.
Aloha, Mr. Lau, Manager Lau. Welcome. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair and members. We stand in strong support of Lance Wilhelm's appointment to the Water Board. I think he will be a valuable asset to the Board of Water Supply and to our community. Water is so precious, so ola kiwai, we stand in support of this appointment. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers? Registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to testify in the audience? Seeing none, thank you, members. We're in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 210 and Resolution 24-126 has been adopted. Congratulations, Mr. Wilhelm, and thank you for your service. From the Committee on Public Safety, Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I move that CR-211 and Resolution 24-127 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Okimoto for the explanation.
Confirming the appointment of Arnold Wong to serve on the Fire Commission of the City and County of Honolulu.
Thank you so much. I see Mr. Wong here. Aloha, Mr. Wong. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Good morning, Chair and members of the Council. My name is Arnold Wong. I just wanted to say it's not only an honor and pleasure, but it's a duty and obligation that I was taught when I was young to help not only my family and friends, but the neighbors and community. So I hope with this position, I can help provide a better department for the community of Honolulu. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Wong? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none. Any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 211 and Resolution 24-127 has been adopted. And congratulations and thank you, Mr. Wong. Moving to the top of page 5 from the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 194 and Resolution 24-147 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is Mr. Vare here? Aloha, Mr. Vare. There you are.
Good morning and aloha, Chair Waters and City Council members. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. And I want to thank you for considering me for appointment for the Neighborhood Commission. And I'm Larry Vare.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Mr. Clerk, I know we have Don Sakamoto, who is registered to testify on Mr. Vare's appointment. Is he available?
Good morning, Chair Waters and other council members. Donald Sakamoto, longtime Kaneohe resident, also serves on the Kaneohe Neighborhood Board 30, as well as I serve on the Oahu Metropolitan Planning Organization on Citizen Advisory Committee too. I'd like to strong support for Larry to be on the neighborhood board position, and I have his full support and hope you folks support him for that. Kudos for what he does at his neighborhood board, and I look forward to working with him very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto. Nice to hear from you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to also echo the mahalo that has been given in previous and current testimony. I'm really grateful to have my neighborhood board chair, Larry Vare here, and just want to thank him for the service that he does. He says he's retired, but this man never rests. He's constantly looking for ways to better the community. So I know with a heart to serve, he'll represent not just our District 8, but also the island and the city of Honolulu. And thank you for being here with us today, Chair Vare. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion, members? Councilmember Cordero.
Chair, did you close testimony?
No.
Because I know we're in discussion, but I don't think we closed testimony either.
Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to testify? Seeing none, thank you. One person? Okay, we got one more testifier. Thank you. Aloha and welcome.
Hi, I'm Julie Reyesora. I'm a teacher and a mom from Eva Beach, but I come here today as Julie from Eva Beach to support Larry Vare. I met Larry when I proposed a resolution as a teacher in Pearl City. As a first-time person to propose a resolution, Larry was really good to help. And I can tell you, also being in the Eva Neighborhood Board, that Larry is willing to work across the lines, not only in his community, but to help other communities too. And as a neighborhood commission person, that's what's required to do that, is to work across the lines and to make sure that across all of our communities, that's what they're working towards. So I hope that you guys appoint Larry and please support him. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, thank you. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 194 and Resolution 24-147 has been adopted. Congratulations and thank you, Mr. Verre. Moving to the bottom of page 5, new business. Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that Resolution 24-183 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia Aina for the explanation.
This resolution relates to a reappointment to the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation Board of Directors.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, oh, wait. It's not on my document, but this is for Kika Bukowski?
That's correct.
That's good. I see Mr. Bukowski here. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Vice Chair, council members. Kika Bukowski, I really appreciate the consideration being given to my reappointment. I noticed the previous speakers were a little brief, and I hope I could ask for your indulgence. I have some comments that I do want to make, and just to put a little bit of context on this reappointment. To say the least, this project is monumental and transformative, not just for the city and county of Honolulu, but for the state as well. And appreciate the trust and confidence that you placed in me in considering my reappointment to the HART Board, and want to reassure all of you that I take my role as a HART Board member very seriously. Now, I was approached over 4 years ago and asked if I would consider serving on the HART Board, and I had a really heart-to-heart conversation, no pun intended, with then Chair Ikaika Anderson, and cautioned him if he really wanted me to serve on the HART Board, because I have a tendency to be fairly blunt and to the point, and sometimes it's received not so favorably, but always with good intent and trying to do the right thing. Nonetheless, I was appointed 4 years ago, and I've since then served as the vice chair of the board. I've served as the former chair of the finance committee, as well as the current chair of the project oversight committee, as well as a member of various other committees. And I've had the privilege of serving, playing a small role in many of the critical issues that the HART has faced over the last several years, including the revised recovery plan, the amended full funding grant agreement, the city TAT, thank you very much to the city council, and as well as, leadership challenges that we've had. When I first got on the board, we experienced a change in leadership, which I felt was very critical to the project. And we have unfortunately experienced a little bit of similar occurrences recently regarding our leadership. But I can honestly stand here and say that the project is moving forward, and notwithstanding a few bumps in the road here and there, and believe me, I drive Dillingham daily, so I can attest to the bumps. And but the project is on road to a successful completion. However, we need to, as a board and as an organization, remain vigilant, mindful. I'm not by any means perfect. I'm not an engineer, and I absolutely do not pretend to know everything or anything about anything. But what I am clear about is my role as a HART Board member on this board, as I see it, as far as the charter provides, as an oversight board and a policy-making board. And in closing, I've had many mentors in my life that I really cherish, some of which are here seated, Speaker, not to point you out, but having served early part of my career living on the island of Maui as a state legislator representing Upcountry Maui with yourself, Chair, as well as Speaker, running one of the largest transportation companies in the state on Maui, and serving as a partner in a largest waste hauling company on Maui. I've had a privilege of meeting a gentleman by the name of Chubby Vicens, who was with Alexander and Baldwin. And just a real quick story, just to kind of sum it all up. You know, when I used to call Chubby and he wasn't able to answer his phone for whatever reason, he had a voicemail. At the end of the voicemail, he always had this quote: "Be the best you can be." And when I first heard that, I thought, well, that's kind of corny. But after I heard it again and again and again, I stopped and I thought about it and I said, you know what? I mean, it's so simple, but it's so profound that, you know, whatever place in life you hold, whatever position, whatever circumstance you're in, whatever challenges you may face, if you just keep that simple phrase in mind, be the best you can be at whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, I think we can try to make this place a better place. So with that in mind, you know, I hope to continue to bring that to the Heart Board and help move this project forward to completion. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the nominee? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. First off, thank you very much for the years that you've served as a Heart Board member. I just want to thank you for being very communicative because whether we have our understanding or how much we're paying attention to the Heart Board or maybe we are not understanding what the decisions are made at the Heart Board, I appreciate the communication that you've had with myself, and I can't speak for other members, but I think that's very valuable, and I really hope that you would continue to do so. So if you were to move forward as the council's appointee to the Heart Board, will you continue that discussion with not just me, but the rest of the council?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, council member. And you know, the simple answer is yes. But also, you know, looking inward and being self-critical, I think I can improve in communicating with all council members, and I think I need to do a better job of that, and I pledge to do that, and appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you. And I'm glad that you brought up Dillingham and Kalihi and Kapalama. The roads are being torn up and the residents are anticipating for the different phases of construction. And no matter what happens, whether it be leadership issues or whatever else, I just want to ask selfishly and also for my neighbors in Kalihi and Kapalama that you ensure that the work there is not just left or ignored, or I just want to make sure it's prioritized so it's not just left there. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just comment. I mean, the contractors on that particular segment of the project have been working diligently. You know, I do frequent Dillingham quite a bit intentionally so that I can feel firsthand some of the challenges that the residents and the businesses face in that area, as well as other board members I know travel that road frequently for the same reasons. But the project is moving ahead. I wouldn't say, you know, it's not free of any challenges, but the contractors that are there are moving forward efficiently. And the board, I can tell you, is keeping a very close eye on that area and very sensitive to the area residents and businesses that are affected.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to also mahalo Mr. Bukowski for being here. And I know that when you were asked 4 years ago, I can tell that it was a decision that was not easily made. I think since then, I've been really appreciative. I can respect and, again, appreciate those like you who are taking these positions, knowing that it's in a hard spot and trying to do your best to make the best out of a situation that you probably walked into that wasn't the best. I think my question relates to how we can reinstill or spark trust. I think the project itself has been really hard for the public because it's gone longer than it was supposed to be, more expensive. And I think with recent, stories in the media and the friction or the conflict between the board and our chair, Dr. Kahikina, has been something where it's more frustrating for the public to view. I still want to have hope, so not putting you on the spot, but what can you tell us to help reinstill hope and faith within the relationship between the board and the administration, but also to have faith in the project again? Because the public, like you said, you're driving on the roads, it's frustrating, businesses are suffering, the roads are still getting damaged in the process of creating this project that you said hopefully will be monumental for our island. But what can you do to help us? I always ask, what can I take back to my constituents in that aspect?
Well, I mean, I can assure the council that, the board, and the board chair and I have this conversation all the time. I think we openly disagree a lot of the time. And she and I both agree that adversity and divergent views and opinions are a good thing. It's not always a bad thing. It oftentimes leads to better outcomes. So although sometimes it might appear as though, there is not full agreement amongst the board, I think in general, the board is all moving in the same direction. And I think, as you've seen recently in the media regarding the CEO position, we all want the project to move forward and as efficiently as possible. And we all recognize the importance of the leadership and the importance of consistency. That's one thing that I've been really pushing since I became was appointed 4 years ago, because we were undergoing a leadership change at that time. And, the big issue that I had was maintaining consistency in the project, especially at the top leadership levels. On a project of this size, of this magnitude, let alone any project, you don't want to change the top leadership position every so many years, because then you're starting basically from scratch again. So I think the board is committed to working its differences out, and I can assure you that I'm committed to helping see that through.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you continuing to work. I think it's great that you recognize that we can respectfully disagree on things, but hopefully for the greater good. And just in the community, there's a lot of support behind Lori, so hopefully the board can continue to do all it can as the project continues. Thank you for being here and for putting yourself back into the board ring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers, registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, the registered testifier is not logged on. I do see a person logged on with their hands up, though.
Okay, let's start with in person. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to testify? Seeing none. Are there any remote testifiers, Mr. Clerk?
May I testify, Chair?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Aloha City Council. Angela Melody Young cares testifying in support of Kika's leadership so that he can get a renewal on the board. He is blunt, but he gets things done. I've been at the board meetings a few times, and with his leadership, I think it will fix a lot of the frustration with HART funding timeline and contracting concerns. He has the characteristics of a good leader to boost the communication processes of the county, national, and state legislative level to speed up building timelines. At the board, people were bringing up their personal concerns, but also there was a strong focus on national, state, and county concerns. So I hope within his leadership, the plans will be integrated, especially with the new CEO. And the characteristics of a good leader is that they push forward despite personal drama. And I think I really observed that on the board. So I think within Kika's leadership, there will be plans to transform our world, to build a strong heart train, to connect the students to schools, employees to work destinations, and to connect the marginalized to the community, so that we may have faith in the next series of the building timeline to bring together cohesive action to the board. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, any further testimony?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion.
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Could I?
Director Kaikina, please.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, council members. I did submit written testimony on my personal behalf regarding the reappointment of Kika Bukowski. But I just wanted to tell a little story. When I came in back in 2021, I did meet with all the different board members to let them know that I'm interested in coming in. At the time, I needed 8 out of the 9 voting members. And Kika was the only one. And when he met with me, he said, "I will not be voting for you." It's nothing personal. We didn't know each other. He says, "I feel we need to support the CEO." So his point exactly, what he said today, consistency in the leadership. Well, fast forward, he is sticking by his word. And I'd like to think that we've made enough progress, not just myself, but the Heart Ohana. And a lot has to do with Kika. Please don't think that he doesn't hold us accountable. We just met with him yesterday on something that's going to be coming in front of the board tomorrow. So we wanted to brief him on all the intricacies of the change order. And he asked very difficult questions of me and my staff. And so he does hold us accountable. He does ask all the pertinent questions, but he's very collaborative. We don't always agree, but he's very collaborative and working to move this project forward. So thank you for allowing me to testify. I do stand by my written testimony as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Are there anybody else who'd like to testify? Director Morton, aloha, welcome.
Aloha, Chair, members of the council. I also speak in strong support of Kika Bukowski. It's my pleasure to serve with him on the board, but I speak as the Department of Transportation Services. I know when I work with Kika, he does his homework when he comes to a meeting, probably more than any other board member. He goes through the materials. He's very, very focused on issues. And I find him to be very refreshing because of the dedication and the time that he obviously puts in when he comes prepared. As others have said, he asks tough questions and sometimes even inconvenient, tough questions, but he asks tough questions. More than that, I think he's very principled in his approach to the board. And frankly, I just admire him and I urge his reappointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further testimony, members of the public? Please proceed.
Hi, I'm Julie Reyes-Ora from Eva Beach. I'm testifying in support of Kiko Bukowski. In the short time that I have known him, what made me think about this was what Ms. Kahikina said when she said that he asked tough questions and he, when he means what he says, and all of those things. Because when I did sit down with him, it's the same thing, that he was direct with me and asked me a question that maybe other people might not have asked. And I thought that that was a little bit more respectful than to just think about it and to just wonder, or maybe like a lot of people here, talk about it with all your friends on the side. And I like that. And he and I talked about that, and I said too that I'm kind of blunt that way. And oftentimes people tend to be kind of put off, with that here. But with that, I also found him to be very introspective in the sense that he also can look at the actions and things that he does, and to be also able to not just react on the fly, but to also think about that. And I think that that would be a good leader for somebody out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further testimony? Please proceed. Please
All
state
right,
your name for the
Pikachu Shelby Billionaire. So I know you guys are going to decide whether the board or however we feel. So I'm just let you know how I feel from Waianae. Maybe you guys don't get the straight up answers. I'm glad he's blunt so I can unleash a little bit. We don't trust the heart rail system. Number one, you don't spell heart right. You're missing the E. Pu'uvai, that's HS 5-7.5, ALOHA Spirit Law. I'm Asian. I want to see a financial statement, income in green, expenses in red, auto sum, that sum every day. I want to know how much expenses are, how much are materials, where are they sourcing from. We got Carl Dix, a welder here. We have to get galvanized steel, aluminum from Thailand and Vietnam. We have to get other sources to get metals here. So I want to know what resources are you using. Can we outsource it better? Concrete's porous, it's going to destroy in 7 years. It's simple, basic math, and we can run the numbers. We got a whole bunch of Asians here with college degrees. You can run the expenses clearly. Now, how do we make a deal? Now we have to negotiate. Why does it end at the Croc Center? What kind of Portuguese, I live in Waianae, is going to go to a dead end by the pool? We cannot get back home catching the rail. If you got to pee from the Croc Center, there's no goddamn bathroom, and it goes to Aloha Stadium, and you're still done, and you can't pee anywhere. I don't know what kind of Portuguese made this system, but I would have started from Waikiki to Ala Moana to the airport, and running like tourists like in Las Vegas. So I hope you take this feedback to the board, can think about something better, because obviously you're going to destroy all the roads, ruin all the business, destroy all the EV Kapuna as you make this rail, and you're not making the money and the income. I just rode the rail the other day because the bus from my pocket doesn't go all the way home. So I want you guys to think about this before you try to use the same railroad system like the Monopoly Rockefeller and train our plantation sugar workers to go do work in Waikiki. We know traffic sucks. It's horrible. So I want you guys to take this feedback to the board to think about this. Why we don't trust you, math doesn't make sense, not logistical, and we can catch the bus faster, quicker, better. I got here on the sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, any further testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I just wanted to note that I hope this isn't a precedent that appointments to the HART board and other important boards go directly to council instead of committee. That's my only comment on this.
Thank you. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, I'd like to just take a few minutes to thank the board chair, and thank the CEO. I think you are doing a good job. Despite the disagreements that may have occurred in the past, I think ultimately those disagreements have resulted in a better project moving forward. This is a reappointment, but I think stability and consistency is important here, especially since we finally resumed the payments from the federal government that were halted for a number of years. And I like to think, and I do believe, that the FTA is watching. They're monitoring what we're doing. And I think it's important to be consistent, and I think Mr. Bukowski provides that. So thank you. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none. Any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Resolution 24-183 has been adopted. Congratulations, Mr. Bukowski. Okay, moving on to page 6. Resolution 24-157, confirming the appointment of J. Pedro to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation of the City and County of Honolulu. Is Mr. Pedro here? Hey, aloha. Thank you for being.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Pedro? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Retired police officer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Okay. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Tolba.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say the conversation I had with Mr. Pedro, I know that he will bring a lot to the board with his background in police force, but not only that, the tons of groups that he volunteered with.
Services and culture and the arts. Moving to the bottom of page 6, Resolution 24-158, confirming the reappointment of Mark Dexter to serve on the Citizens Advisory Commission on Emergency Management of the City and County of Honolulu. Is Mark Dexter present. Hello, Mr. Dexter. Thank you for being here. Would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and also council members. Just wanted to say mahalo for the support in reappointing me to this commission. I think everybody's pretty aware, based on recent events, of the necessity of good emergency management planning. You know, the proper planning and preparation for any kind of an emergency or natural disaster is going to be the best case for us to have a good outcome. So the better that we do to plan what we're going to do before an emergency, during an emergency, and after an emergency, the better chance that we have to have the best possible outcome when something happens. Some of these things are unpredictable, yet there are common objectives that we know about and that we want to accomplish after any type of incident or emergency so that we can plan for those in advance. I'm looking forward to providing my expertise and my mana'o to help the county in the emergency management planning, and thanks again for your support.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the nominee? Councilmember Kiaina, followed by Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Mr. Dexter, for agreeing to serve again. I agree with you that in light of what happened in Maui, and we're reaching the first anniversary, that I think we have to have our eyes wide open in everything, including the appointees for this commission. So I appreciate you serving. I do have two questions. The first, of course, has to do, I've been hearing a lot from our respective community emergency response teams on the ground. And I just wanted to know, because I wasn't quite familiar with this commission myself, and I just wanted to know, how do you interface with them? Because the concerns that have been expressed to me is that in light of what happened in Maui, when communications goes down, I think there are community members who feel underappreciated, and that the role of the CERT teams could be of valuable use to communities, as a lot of our government officials are actually cut off with communications. And so I just wanted to ask what your mana'o is, and how does your commission interface with the CERT groups on the ground?
So we definitely meet once a month, and what we do is we provide input to Director Toya to in terms of what he's interacting with the different emergency management agencies. So these emergencies, when they come up, there's a variety of agencies that get involved: FEMA and the county and the state, and then the utilities, and then the first responders. All of that is a really important kind of communication pattern. And the way that we interface with the community is different between those different agencies.
No, I understand, but I'm specifically asking about community emergency response teams. Are you familiar with them?
Yes, so I guess I'm not clear on what
I'm
exactly.
asking, they exist in all of our communities, and they've expressed frustration to me about feeling that they are undervalued with regard to the chain of command, with regard to the governmental emergency response team. So since you happen to be a Citizens Advisory Commission on Emergency Management, I would think that you might be the logical entity to maybe close that gap, to work with these communities to make sure that they are utilized in some fashion when we have an emergency. That's what my question is.
Sure, good question. I understand. And I guess my response to that is I don't think that this commission has corresponded directly with those groups as part of our role. We've been more sort of on the higher level emergency management planning, and that's more centered and focused on how the different agencies are going to communicate, and making sure that first responders, utilities, the state, the counties, all of those folks are integrating and communicating well during an emergency. I understand the community also wants to know things as quickly as possible. We haven't been in contact with those folks directly.
Okay, I understand. So I have to tell you, my point is actually they don't want to be communicated with. They want to let the government agencies know that they can better communicate with the community when communications are down. So that's my only point.
Great,
I
yeah.
think your comment answers my question. My second question has to do with the fact that now there's lessons learned, and when we're considering the primary urban center development plan right now, which is a big geographical location, right? 5 council districts, 8, nearly 20 neighborhood boards. And I don't know, I'm looking at the emergency preparedness section of that plan because our committee, the Economy and Planning Committee, is looking at it right now. And I guess I just wanted to flag it for your commission as well, because I don't know if what is in there, the lessons learned from Maui was factored in. I'm looking at myself. I'm just sharing that with you.
Sure.
And to have you guys take a look at it. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Mr. Dexter. Thank you for serving and wanting to continue to serve on this commission. First off, I'm glad that the CRTs were brought up and the mention of communication. And I brought this up to Director Toya before, but also opening up communications to legislators or community leaders as well outside of the CRTs, mainly because when things occur, they reach out to all of us and our colleagues across the street as well. And so if there's ways that you can discuss on the commission on how to open up communications to people that the communities trust, I think that would be a great discussion to have. And if it doesn't work because of certain, I guess, privacy issues, well, we just got to know that that's the reason, right? So hoping we can hear from the department after the commission discusses that, that would be great. Next, I would also like to hear, because I did see your resume or your formed resume about your background, the background that you have, your educational background. And I wanted to know how have you been able to use that in your last term, and if you're working on anything in discussion with the commission and the department to do so. And I didn't want to toot your horn, but if you could share your background so that the public can know as well.
Sure. I graduated from the University of Hawaii, and my degrees are geology, geophysics, and civil engineering. And I served as a consulting engineer for 20-something years, working for many of the local, companies, everybody from landowners to the counties, and doing environmental and civil engineering and emergency management type of planning over those years. I now work for Hawaii Gas, and I serve as the Senior Director of Compliance and Safety for Hawaii Gas. So that role also encompasses the emergency management planning for our utility. What I will say is that experience has afforded me sort of a broad background of how things operate in terms of what we have to do engineering-wise, planning-wise, ahead of an emergency, during an emergency, and then after an emergency. There are certain common things that all of the major entities are doing, but I will say a lesson learned from, I think, last year was that the communication between all of the different agencies and the understanding of how each agency runs their emergency management was maybe had room for improvement. And I think that's one of the lessons that I'm seeing a huge focus on, is how we communicate and coordinate in advance. So I think there's a lot of progress has been made just in the last year, and looking at those plans, the large emergency management plans that have been prepared, trying to make sure that those are fit for purpose and useful for folks, and they're not just a gigantic document. But how do we make those more useful and fit for purpose? How do we make sure that the right communication is occurring with the right folks, given the constraints of technology and privacy and so forth? So I've seen a lot of focus on that over the last 12 months, and I think that there's going to be improvements more than there have been for quite a while before. It's sad that something like that has to happen to drive that improvement, but that's I've seen a lot of progress in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. And my next question is in relation to different communities. I got to watch all the town halls or attend some of the town halls too, and so, where we heard a lot of discussion post-wildfire about their communities and how to either the egress and ingress of access points to their communities. So with once again, your background, are you looking at discussions with the department to see which communities may need better access points in and out?
So honestly, when an emergency occurs, and let's just take a hurricane as an example, things fall down like trees and power lines and other things and obstruct access. And really one of the very first things that has to happen is clearing access. I think that the department and also all of the other individual companies, utilities, and agencies look at where have communities been impacted before and where can we forward stage things so that we don't have to maybe traverse a road. We have things that are forward staged in those areas so that we can get there faster. How do we stage our personnel out in these areas? Who lives there already and how can we deploy them and figure out are they okay and can they deploy? So a lot of planning takes place in that space that you mentioned, is how do we get to people faster and how do we access these areas? And a lot of that is guided by what we know from previous events, where things have been impacted the most. So yeah, I think that's...
Okay, one last comment and question is, as chair of the Budget Committee, I hope that we can see that discussion and decisions reflected in the department's budget moving forward. So I hope that as a commission, you'll look at all of that and urge for that priority to be either placed in DEM or any other department that it may affect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the input.
Thank you. Any further questions for the nominee members? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers? Please proceed. Can you press the microphone button? There you go.
Right, on. Oh, wow, good, it works. All right, Pikachu Shelby Billionaire, so back again. So I did the same thing when Hiko came to tell us about PSPS. We're doing a CERT, the training, the Lions Club, which we're hosting, Manoa Lions Club. We're gonna do a free training, 16 through the 18, Radford High School, hosted by Garrett Ogawa. You guys may know him. And we're doing free CPR first aid training on the 19th at Radford High School for the community, because I was there in Lahaina. What you guys failed to do was you didn't give any one of these. Solar-powered mini generators for your cell phone. When you're cut out of comm, this helps save that cell phone right there, save people Kahana Ohana boat ramp. Their cell phones didn't work on Maui. I got there maybe day 5 from the boat. We had to catch boats from Waianae, pick up supplies, go to Hawaii Kai, stay over Molokai because our load was too heavy. We got off on the boat. I had my own Go Zero, I had my own propane, everything I brought from Waianae City Mill. The average person can't get this gear because of lithium. So if you can get the military to buy all the lithium Go Zeros, and then HECO can sponsor it and give it all to their customers, because we're already being sacrificed as the first guinea pigs for the PSPS shutdown system. In case of emergency, where there's winds 50 miles per hour or more, like a hurricane or a tsunami, they're gonna cut off our power for a recovery rate of 1 hour to 2 days. If a real tsunami comes, you're gonna knock down all the telephone poles like you said, and you can't come in or out. We are stuck. If the fire comes up by our range, we have to go down to the water. But if some gas explosion comes down and HECO cuts off our electricity, they don't have any Go Zero, any generators, we're SOL. So I would hope you'd have propane, you have gas, and what you Portuguese did was you sent whole cases of water, cup noodle ramen, and styrofoam. How the heck are you gonna boil and cook this styrofoam water? It doesn't make sense. So we cut down trees, and we make our own wood, we make our own fire, we do our own self-sufficiency. We do 10 by 10, we live under there so we can survive. They're doing great recovery at Olowalu with Eddie Garcia, who can do container homes, 20-footer for $3 grand, 40-footer for $6 grand, on a trailer with your gray water system, solar panel, everything, all for free for the families who got affected by the Lahaina fires. What's Josh Green doing? I have no clue. Mr. Beast just did 100 homes all over Mexico. People can be done if we're working with the right numbers and the right people. What you guys are doing in your committee, I have no clue, but I recommend you guys come into the field, because I have to give a shout out to all the base camps that were there. Kahana, and all the other ones that the local guys set up for the hubs, the kitchen, those are all for the community and the volunteers. So if you're going to your higher level board, I'd recommend they sit down, talk to them, and actually experience what it's like homeless with nothing and you're cut off with power, because I'm pretty sure the other districts are concerned about that too, when they're gonna be hanging out to dry. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further testimony? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Members, we are in discussion. The only comment is perhaps we can learn from what happened on Maui. Yeah. Okay, members, Resolution 24-158 has been referred to the Committee on Public Safety. Turning to page 7. Page 7. Resolution 24-159, confirming the appointment of Gerald Gibson to serve on the Fire Commission of the City County of Honolulu. I note that Mr. Gibson could not be here today, but Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, Resolution 24-159 has been referred to the Committee on Public Safety. Moving to the bottom of page 7, Resolution 24-169, confirming the appointment of Dr. Kristen Olson to serve on the Climate Change Commission of the City and County of Honolulu. I note that Ms. Olson is also not present today, but Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, Resolution 24-169 has been referred to the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health. Moving to the top of page 8, Resolution 24-170, confirming the appointment of Jason Wu to serve on the Planning Commission of the City and County of Honolulu. I note that Mr. Wu is not present this morning. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers? Mr. Wu is here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Aloha, thank you so much for being here. Please proceed.
Hi, good morning, Chair Waters, council members. I had previously had a conflict. I was supposed to be in trial, but it got resolved at the last minute, so I'm glad I could be here this morning. I want to thank the mayor as well as the council members for your consideration to serve on the Planning Commission, and I look forward to serving in that capacity if confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Wu? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you, members. We're in discussion. Seeing none, Resolution 24-170 has been referred to the Committee on Planning and the Economy. Resolution 24-171, confirming the appointment of Jeffrey Portnoy to serve on the Civil Service Commission of the City and County of Honolulu. Aloha, Mr. Portnoy. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here this morning. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair and members of the council. I am honored by the mayor's nomination for this important commission, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Portnoy? Seeing none, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Seeing none, members, we're in discussion. Noting no discussion, Resolution 24-171 has been referred to the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs. Moving to the top of page 9, Resolution 24-172, confirming the appointment of Victoria Takamine to serve on the Commission on Culture and the Arts of the City and County of Honolulu. I note that Ms. Takamine could not be here today. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you, members. We're in discussion. Councilmember Kia Aina.
Just some comments. I'm looking forward to her committee hearing. As you know, she is a very esteemed kumuhula, and I am pleasantly surprised about the nomination because she has so much kuleana as it is, and so I think not only the mayor but that the people of the City and County of Honolulu, we're very, very fortunate by her allowing to serve us on this commission. I'm looking forward to her working with the other commissioners to do good for the people of Oahu.
Thank you. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, Resolution 24-172 has been referred to the Committee on Parks, Enterprise Services, and Culture and the Arts. Resolution 24-173, confirming the appointment of Elizabeth Soto to serve on the Commission of Culture and the Arts of the City and County of Honolulu. Ms. Soto is present. Thank you so much for being here. Aloha.
Aloha, aloha, Chair Waters and Council, and I mahalo to the Mayor and to everybody for this opportunity. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the nominee? Seeing none. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, Resolution 24-173 has been referred to the Committee on Parks, Enterprise Services, and Culture and the Arts. Moving to the top of page 10, Resolution 24-174, confirming the appointment of Taylor Chang to serve on the Commission of Culture and the Arts of the City and County of Honolulu. Aloha. Thank you for being here. Would you like to say a few words?
Aloha. No, just thank you for the consideration. Thank you to the mayor and everyone for considering me, and I look forward to serving the commission if given the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you. Did I ask for testifiers, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we have no testifiers.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Kia Aina.
Just comments, because the last three were wahine, and I just want to let you guys know that if all three are confirmed, there will be 6 wahine and 5 kane. And so, you know, I'm always looking just at gender equity, so looking forward to having you guys on board.
Thank you. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none. Resolution 24-174 has been referred to the Committee on Parks, Enterprise Services, and Culture and the Arts. Resolution 24-175, confirming the appointment of Joshua Tengan to serve on the Commission of Culture and the Arts of the City and County of Honolulu. Is Mr. Tengan here? Mr. Tengan's not here. No problem. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, Resolution 24-175 has been referred to the Committee on Parks, Enterprise Services, and Culture and the Arts. Members, moving to the top of page 11, first reading items. Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that Bill 35 pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia Aina for the explanation.
This bill relates to intergovernmental agreements by amending the requirements for approval of certain community development block grant program agreements involving the City and County of Honolulu.
Thank you so much. Do we have any testifiers? Hello, welcome, Deputy Director.
Hello and good morning. Edward Los Panos, Deputy Director, Department of Community Services. DCS and the administration supports the work of our network of nonprofits across the island and what they do to enrich lives here in Honolulu. We also recognize the potential of CDBG to lower the barriers of nonprofits to operate through facilities, building improvements, and other equipment that the grant is eligible to fund. We've also heard the sentiment of the council to try and encourage more investment in nonprofits through this fund. We're actually in process right now working to reallocate within the existing consolidated plan that this council has approved to make that happen this fiscal year. And, you know, nonprofits, frankly, have been essential in helping the city meet its timeliness goals and we were required to meet in CDBG in recent years even. But the administration does, and DCS does need more flexibility where this bill mandates a 30% or 1/3 allocation to nonprofits. If they're not able to fulfill it, and yet if we're mandated to have them spend it, you know, it kind of puts us in a bind. But we do have I will share that we do have a functioning consolidated action plan, and we're going to be driving execution of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any questions for the Deputy Director? Councilmember Kiaina.
Just comments both for, with the director as well as my colleagues here. First of all, thank you to both the Director Kraki as well as yourself for briefing me recently with regard to your plan. At first, when you guys were telling me what you were doing, I couldn't believe it, that I kind of looked like I was a little calm, but inside I was jumping up and down because I felt like I was a broken record the last couple of years in trying to increase the percentage of nonprofits that you serve. So what you're telling me is good news. Again, to remind everybody, this is community development block grants, not city development block grants. And I feel that with the TAT funding that has been allocated for the Department of Parks and Recreation, they have funding to supplement their base funding. I would say this, for my colleagues, I've introduced both a bill and a resolution, and it is my preference that both move to committee for hearing, and then we can have this dialogue. I felt compelled to have to do it, to move the dial forward, because I've been hearing some hemming and hawing, and I was concerned. I also do want to say that I acknowledge that there needs to be more done within our nonprofit communities to build capacity, but because it's equally true of our city programs, then there is no reason to be not including them in any notice for competition. So thank you so much. Look forward to having this dialogue in the committee.
Thank you. Any further questions for the Deputy Director? Councilmember Wire.
Sorry, no questions, just no reservations.
Reservations? Okay. Any further questions for the Deputy Director? I have a quick question. Can CDBG monies be used to fund brick and mortar projects for nonprofits?
The answer is yes. The challenge that we've been having with brick and mortar operations is that we have a timeliness or spend down rate that we have to maintain on the funds. So with some of our parks projects that we've concentrated on, as alluded by Councilmember Kiaina, if you start with planning and you start with design and you start going into construction, sometimes you don't hit those timeliness goals because we don't spend the money within the time allotted for us, and then we got to rejigger and react. That was definitely an impact for us during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we had supply chain issues. So, for example, on our consolidated plan right now is a fire truck, and you know, the fire truck and supply chain, we're just not getting them delivered. So there's things like that that happen. But yes, the short answer to your question is yes.
Terrific. Now, the timeliness factor, if we, the city, gives the money to the nonprofit, does that satisfy, for a brick and mortar, does that satisfy the timeliness requirement, or does the nonprofit actually have to spend the money on the building that they're purchasing in order to satisfy the timeliness requirement?
That's actually a great question. The answer is they have to spend it on the acquisition or whatever project they're going to do it on. In the past, one of the problems we have had when it was concentrated in the nonprofit realm was that they continued to fundraise to meet the acquisition, and in that time period, we kept running into timeliness issues. So the impact of timeliness, if we don't spend it, is possible sanctions and loss of funds.
Okay, thank you very much. I know every year various council members will put in money in the CIP budget, whether it's Adult Friends for Youth, Hinamalka, or other noteworthy nonprofits who need help with brick and mortar type of funding, that we're just hoping that this could be a good spend of this money, but understanding the problems that the department has to deal with. Any further questions or follow-up? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Director Los Baños, I was wondering, in alignment with the timing issue, I know that the department was looking at efforts to, I guess, less handhold the nonprofits, but also try to keep them on their timing and deadlines, because it's critical, not just for CDBG, but all the other grants that are ushered through your department. How has that process been since we last talked? And I want to say March, so.
We've been making great strides in that. I think part of the issue that nonprofits were running into at the time was just how flooded the market was, right? So we had CARES dollars, FRF dollars, we had other coronavirus federal dollars flowing through the system. So, and nonprofits didn't necessarily have the back office to process that amount of volume. So as the funding starts to decline, we've seen both more timely flow of cash because there's not as much moving, and the capacity issues kind of been resolved. But we've also seen, to the nonprofits' credit, a lot of improvements on their side in their back office functions. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for that update. And I ask mainly because do you foresee the same process needing to take place if Bill 35 were to take effect?
Right now, the solicitation that we're working on is to get money out to nonprofits for acquisitions or other projects. And we are looking at, in our evaluation criteria, their ability to expend and expend quickly is just so we can meet that, for that exact purpose. So if they're doing an acquisition, they have it going, they'll meet the, all the federalization, all the different studies they have to do to acquire the property, make sure that they can do that within a time period. But their timeliness is going to be a big factor on their ability to do that. But we're also going to look at after that, because after we expend the CDBG money, that requirement or whatever they applied for rests with the property for several years after. Sometimes we've had issues where the nonprofit hasn't been able to sustain the program. They change the uses, they change the purposes, and then we have to have some tough conversations with them. So we are looking for nonprofits that have programs that are funded, and we're just really trying to give them a leg up and expand their services.
Oh, that's tough. Okay. Well, I look forward to further discussion because that is a difficult thing. And okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions for the Deputy Director? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you, members. Any further discussion? Seeing none, noting the reservations of Councilmember Wire, are there any objections or further reservations? Seeing none, Bill 35 has passed first reading. Moving to the bottom of page 11, Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that Bill 36 pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia Aina for the explanation.
This bill authorizes the issuance and sale and specifying certain terms of wastewater system revenue commercial paper of the City and County of Honolulu in an aggregate outstanding principal amount not to exceed $400 million outstanding at any one time for the purpose of refunding all or a part of any outstanding wastewater system revenue indebtedness of the City and County, or paying the cost of any equipment or other improvement authorized pursuant to any capital budget ordinance relating to the wastewater system of the City and County, authorizing the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to determine certain terms of such commercial paper, providing for the retirement of any indebtedness to be refunded, and providing for other actions related to the issuance, sale, and delivery of such commercial paper.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. We have a testifier. Please proceed.
Aloha. Pikachu shall be a billionaire. So when I read that, I don't no idea what that means. $400 million in aggregation. We're from Waianae. You're going to clean up the poopy, stinky water? You're talking about the Kukai water right by the bus stop I got here. It smells like Kukai Okole. So you're going to get $400 million. It sounds like you're getting a quarterback refund off of something. So can someone please explain to the people of Waianae, because I don't understand. I have my master's, a doctorate, Air Force veteran. What does it mean for $400 million of aggregation, and we have multiple sewage plants? It doesn't say Waianae, which is where I'm from. You also got Sand Island. So can someone please elaborate, explain what this bill actually means to people who speak proper English?
Thank you very much. Actually, do we have the Deputy Director of Environmental Services here? Could you please explain the bill? Hello and welcome.
Aloha Chair, Council members. Mike O'Keefe, Deputy Director with the city's Department of Environmental Services. So commercial paper is a short-term financing mechanism, much like a wastewater revenue bond is a long-term financing mechanism. It's all different forms of debt. Commercial paper just has typically a much shorter maturity, usually like 270 days or less, whereas a wastewater bond can go from 25 to 30 years. And the maturity is the period of time that the agency such as ours has to pay off that debt, basically. So commercial paper, 270 days or less, very short. So the money that we would generate from the sale of this commercial paper would be used to fund improvements to treatment plants across the island, including Waianae. So we have nine treatment plants, Waianae, Sand Island being two that were mentioned.
Thank you. Just to clarify again, what was the 400 million going to be used for?
So it's authorization up to 400 million. So when we issue the commercial paper, it'll just be used to fund the CIP program.
Okay, and could you be a little bit more specific?
We have about 100 projects in various stages of development right now. Some of them are cash funded, sewer funded. Some of them are sewer revenue bond funded. The money that we would generate from the sale of this commercial paper would be used to fund those projects that are sewer revenue bond funded. In other words, you have debt funded and cash funded projects. And we're happy to provide a list of what those bond funded or debt funded projects are.
Okay, could it be possible that you're using the money to upgrade the sewer lines, including sewer treatment centers like Honolulu that services the Waianae coast?
That's correct. Honolulu, Waianae Treatment
Center. And this is paid back using the amount of money that we pay in our water bill, right?
Yeah, the sewer fees are included in the water bill. It's the water and sewer fees, but yes, that's right. That's the money that we get from payments on those bills is used to pay back this debt.
Okay, thank you very much. Any follow-up questions for the Deputy Director? Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you, members. We're in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 36 has passed first reading. Just as a reminder for members of the public, each bill before it passes needs 3 readings. So this is first reading. Moving to the top of page 12, Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that Bill 37 pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, Vice Chair Kia Aina, for the explanation.
This bill relates to overt video monitoring.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you, members. We're in discussion. Wait, we have a testifier. Mr. Manaku, aloha, welcome. Please proceed.
This Bill 37, yes?
Yeah, please proceed.
You know, Mr. Chair, we're having a different group of people coming to Hawaii nowadays. And I'm not sure you folks notice this. And they're taking Hawaii and picking us. They're coming to Hawaii and taking advantage of us. And I think, you know, I don't like the idea of being spied at or upon. But I think we really need to be aware of what's happening in our community. So I think we need to have cameras in places where we're having problems. Because these people are coming from the continent and coming to Hawaii and taking advantage of us. So there are some places I think we need to have we need to be spied upon. Because these people are coming here and are doing things that are not good. You folks heard of this thing called Crips and Bloods? This is a reality here in a way now. You know, it's happening in Waianae even. And that's something I never ever thought would happen in Hawaii. So we need to become aware of this. I'm a parent and a grandparent and a great-grandparent, and I don't want to see my children become a part of that group. You folks are the law makers. Yeah? So I'm not sure how you folks going to handle this. Me, I can beat my children up and make them understand. But you guys going to make a law against me. How about making a law that's going to help prevent me from doing that and prevent these children, or these people from doing that? Prevent them from me correcting my children. Maybe this might be a way to help me. Because they're having a bad influence on our children. Don't you notice they guys using guns nowadays? Wow. Something's happening here. So as lawmakers, please try to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manaku. Any further testifiers? Seeing none, members, any discussion? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 37 has passed first reading. Vice Chair Kia-Aina, bottom of page 12.
Bottom of page 12. I move that Bill 38 pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia-Aina for the explanation.
This bill amends the Oahu Watershed Management Plan.
Thank you. Is there a motion to amend? Vice
I
Chair
move
Kia-Aina.
that Bill 38 be amended to the posted FD1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Kia-Aina for the explanation of the amendment.
This amendment attaches to the bill the East Honolulu Watershed Management Plan as Exhibit A and makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments.
Thank you very much. And just for everybody's information, I typically don't like to do floor amendments. However, in this case, the actual management plan was not attached to the bill. So I thought it was important to do it at first reading just so that everybody knows exactly what we're voting on. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Ernest Lau signed up remotely, but he's here in person, and members of the public.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Aloha. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair and members, Ernie Lau, Board of Water Supply. We support this bill, the FD1, and thank you, Chair, for attaching the entire plan to the bill, because that's the only way people can see what's in it and provide comments. I understand there is some testimony that's come in to mimic some more amendments to the bill or corrections, so that we're very open to working with the Mauna Loa Fish Pond Heritage Center and the Kanawai Spring. I happen to have the honor to visit the Kanawai Spring, and I must say that it is a very precious and special place, and I apologize for oversight and not having that covered under the plan. Also, comments from Livable Hawaii Kahui. So we're open to receiving comments and making amendments that can be discussed in committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Manager Lau? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers? Mr. Manaku, aloha and welcome again.
Aloha again, James Kia Manaku Sr., concerned parent, grandparent, great-grandparent. I agree, and I thank everybody for doing this, but I have some concerns. And my concern is, as a cultural practitioner, I depend on the pigs in the mountains. As you folks know, to get food nowadays, it's becoming hard, and it's costing a lot. Yeah, so my concern is that, you know, some of the ways that people are trying to get rid of the animals and the food that we depend on in Hawaii is to use chemicals. And the chemicals I'm concerned is that it may affect our livelihood, our women, and our families. As you know, some of these chemicals can create deformities, yeah, in our children. So I'm not against them doing what they're doing, and I'm glad they're doing that. But I would really wish that they would not use chemicals. And if they need to get rid of pigs and invasive species like pigs, goats, deer, as an example, please call us.
Okay.
Because in Hawaii, we depend on those animals for food. And we would really appreciate let us go in there and help them get rid of that.
Thank you so much.
Instead of using the chemicals. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha. Mr. Clerk, do we have any further testifiers on the Oahu Watershed Management Plan?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. See none, any objections or reservations to the motion to amend? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 38 has been amended to the posted FD1. Members are now in discussion on the posted FD1. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 38, FD1 has passed first reading. Turning to the top of page 13, Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that Bill 39 pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia Aina for the explanation.
This bill relates to building permits.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members are in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 39 has passed first reading. Members, moving to the top of page 14, from the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 192 be adopted and Bill 33 CD1 as amended pass second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam for the explanation.
Chair, this relates to Chapter 1 Revised Ordinances of Honolulu 2021 as amended.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have Chris Delaney in person.
Hello, Mr. Delaney?
No? Oh, sorry.
No?
My,
Any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none apparently.
Okay. Was there a motion to amend?
On Bill 33.
On Bill 33. Quick recess. Thank you, members. Reconvening, we are on the top of page 14 on Bill 33, CD1. Mr. Clerk, just to clarify, are there any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have no testifiers on this measure.
Thank you. We're in discussion. Councilmember Kiaino? Okay. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 192 has been adopted and Bill 33 CD1 has passed second reading. From the Committee on Zoning, Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, I move that committee report number 202 be adopted and Bill 31, committee draft 1 as amended, pass second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Say for the explanation.
It's a new concept, and this is relating to a pre-construction financing for affordable rental housing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, yes, we have Mr. Delaney signed up for this one.
Okay, wonderful. Hello, Mr. Delaney, please proceed. Excuse me, sir, we have registered testifiers first. Mr. Delaney is registered. We'll call on you next, though.
Aloha Chair, Council Members, Chris Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership. We stand on our written testimony in strong support of Bill 31. And in particular, we're in strong support of the proposed FD1 submitted by Councilmember Wire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. I note that Gina Thielen has also registered to testify. Aloha, welcome.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Council. My name is Gina Thielen. I am a Bill 7 developer, and I'm here to testify in favor of Bill 31. I'm going to leave aside my comments regarding square footage for the Bill 3 hearing, and I just would like to bring up a potential technical glitch that I mentioned in my written testimony regarding the wording around how the funds are intended to be used. Specifically, the way the bill is drafted is that it states that the funds can only be used to pay the wages of workers on the project. What I would suggest is that it should be linked to Chapter 104 HRS as it is, but it would be very difficult to track those dollars once they're mixed in with all the other funds that go into a construction project. So as long as we are in conformance with HRS 104, and as long as we are paying prevailing wage per state law, I think that the intent would be satisfied without adding the added burden of that tracking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you very much. I think that concludes our registered testifiers. Sir, please proceed.
My name's Carl Dix, and this is in regards to the affordable rentals. I've come to understand that the council has revenue issues and a shortage of police officers. And I've recently discovered one of the reasons for this, and it has to do with the city and county prosecutor's office and homeless people. We also have a homeless problem, which affordable rentals draws this situation. And what's going on is the HPD is writing all these citations to the homeless people for sit and lie and all this, tents and tarps and all of the homeless issues. And the city and county prosecutor just flushes them out through the system. And they're hiding other cases and other citations. And there's other crimes that are growing out of control in these affordable housing areas because of this situation that's in our city and county prosecutor's office and in the courts. And I have pages and pages and hundreds of thousands of cases where the city and county prosecutor is just simply flushing things through the court system. And just some rough numbers, in the last 3 years, I would just roughly estimate that it's been anywhere from $25 to $50 million of time wasted. In the last 3 years, minimum
25,000 man days, 25,000 8-hour days have been wasted by what this court system and the city and county prosecutor's office is doing. They take a homeless person and dismiss pages and pages of other citations, and there's no action taken, and it's just wasting our police officers' time and putting them at risk, and it's a public safety risk, and the crime is growing out of control because this busy work, basically, and it's costing millions of dollars, and they're just flushing it through the court system. I yield.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have one testifier online with her hand.
Okay, please proceed.
Aloha, City Council, Angela Melody Young, testifying in support. So we're on Bill 31, right?
Yes, CD1.
Okay. So for pre-construction funding, okay. So I'd like to highlight my support for this bill because of a state resolution. So I'm not going on like a tangent. I'm just highlighting my support for this bill because of something that was emphasized in a state resolution that points out a similar concern. In the pre-stages of building an affordable housing development, funding is the biggest barrier. And so if we were to analyze stage to stage, which stage are we at in Hawaii's housing crisis that has the biggest barrier, funding in the beginning stage is the biggest barrier. So by pointing out to House Concurrent Resolution 85 from this year, that the state is thinking the same thing is good because it shows how well the city and the state are working together to get to common goals. And in House Concurrent Resolution, HCR 85, it states, high housing development costs and high interest rates puts pressure on developers, investors, and banks, which are then passed on to buyers and renters. So there is a focus on reducing financing and development costs, and the focus on funding for the pre-construction stages of buildings are therefore a good focal point. So in strong support, and Hawaii developers must get investors to fund and other funding sources, such as Hawaii's Rental Housing Revolving Fund and LIHTC can be accessed for more funding. But then with the governmental policy, such as the pre-construction funding to help out, then it addresses the funding barrier. So the state this year has put in a large amount of funds to get to a common goal. Helping developers and investors in the beginning stages will help us all achieve common housing goals. And I'd like to comment specifically on the Bank of Hawaii's points that they raised in the zoning committee. They testified that it is helpful if the financial responsibility is now upon the government, or some of the financial responsibility is now upon the government. So this is helpful to banks. And also, I agree with Building Industry Association of Hawaii that there should be no square foot requirement. Is that number arbitrary? 300. Is that number arbitrary? Or is there a graphic or a chart
please wrap up
that you're getting that number from? If you can clarify that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, this calls for a roll call. Mr. Clerk, please proceed.
Councilmember Cordero?
Sorry, what are we voting on? The main motion?
This is, yes, the main motion, Bill 31 CD1.
Bill 31 CD1.
Okay, aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam?
Just to clarify, there was not a motion to
No.
amend. Okay, aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Talba? Councilmember Tupola is excused. Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. CR 202 has been adopted and Bill 31, CD1 has passed second reading. Looking forward to a lively discussion in committee, members, and at that point, if anybody has recommended amendments, I encourage you to do that at that time. So thank you, members. We're turning to page 15 from the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 209 be adopted and Bill 19 FD1 CD1 as amended past second reading.
Councilmember Kia Aina for the second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Wire for the explanation.
This is relating to housing.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola is excused. Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. CR 209 has been adopted and Bill 19, FD1, CD1 has passed second reading. Moving to the bottom of page 15, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 179 and Bill 26 related to honor our Kupuna Month past second reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Wire, for the explanation. Is there a motion to amend? Councilmember Okimoto.
Chair, I move to further amend Bill 26 to the posted FD1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Okimoto for the explanation of the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. The FD1 makes the amendment set forth in the written summary as posted on the agenda. The proposed FD1 makes the following amendments. In Section 2, the bill deletes the proposed addition of a new article and amends the title of ROH Chapter 1, Article 25 to read, Commemorations and Celebrations. B, adds a new Section 3 to the bill that adds a new section to ROH Chapter 1, Article 25, to designate the month of May as Honor Our Kupuna Month, to honor the great wisdom, generational knowledge, and immense contributions of the beloved Kupuna of Oahu, and renumbers the subsequent section. C, makes effective date January 1st, 2025, and D, makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, I believe we have Angela Melody Young, who's registered to testify. Is she available?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Aloha. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support of Bill 26. So I'd like to refer to a Department of Education program, the Kupuna component, to emphasize the importance of honoring kapunas, especially in the Hawaiian culture, relating to the education of students at the public school systems in Hawaii. So, the Kupuna Month is so important, and we can see that in schools, the Kupuna component began in the 1970s in the Windward District on the island of Oahu. Kupuna means grandparent, ancestor, and honored elder. In the Hawaiian culture, kapunas are highly respected and seen as an important link as keepers of ancestral knowledge. And for this reason, Native Hawaiian elders are invited into the classroom to share their cultural knowledge, life experiences, and the Hawaiian language. So the demand for this interaction expanded to more schools, and in 1980, the Kupuna component officially became a part of the Hawaiian Studies program. The Kupuna component aims to enrich students' learning about the Hawaiian language and cultural practices. A valuable lesson gained from the kapuna component is that within the life experiences of Hawaii, we have a special place to call home. So place-based learning is emphasized to encourage a sense of belonging, appreciation, and stewardship for Hawaii. And then also personally for me, I think honoring kapunas starts with simple acts of kindness, because I'm from a younger generation. For example, a simple act of kindness is if I were to start a career, I'd like the person who has my position retire first as an executive before taking his job. So that's something to me is acting kindly to someone is kind of just being respectful in the professional field, but then also teaching the students from my art class about kapunas and honor. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers? Please proceed.
Chair, we have one person in the chamber.
Sir, before we start, I do just want to point out our council rules. Rule number 20, subsection H. All persons attending council meetings, including city employees, witnesses, members of the media, and the general public, are expected to respect the dignity of the council and the use of wearing apparel, decorum, and general appearance. So we'd love to see your real face. I know you're wearing a mask, and you certainly have the First Amendment right to testify.
Right, it's on the U.S. Senator ballot under We the People, billionaire Shelby Pikachu. There you go. Which camera?
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Shelby Billionaire Pikachu. Last name is Billionaire, first name Shelby, and Pikachu is my nickname on the U.S. Senator ballot. You can check with the Office of Elections and the state of Hawaii.
All right, please proceed.
Wonderful. So, Pikachu Shelby Billionaire, I'm actually on the Waianae Moku Kapuna Council. I've been filming them for years, so I definitely approve of this bill for Kapuna Month, but I want to clarify something for people who don't speak Olelo Hawaii. If you can't tell me today's date, do not try to give me a Kapuna elder lesson. We're going to snap, crackle, pop. There's no S in the Hawaiian language. There's 13 letters, the 13 letters in Okina. There's no Shelby in Olelo Hawaii. There's no Kapunas. You don't add an S. There's no ringos for multiple apples. You count two. Futatsu no ringo, two apple. So we say kapuna, keiki. You don't add S. You're speaking a dyslexic, illiterate language, and now you're trying to tell us what to do. It doesn't go well. So when you have a Kapuna month, what do they actually get? Because I have to actually go to them today. We're going to have Cedric Gates, representative debate, meet and greet with the entire Waianae West Side with 6 candidates. That's what we're doing for our Kapuna, for our community. So you're going to have a Kapuna month. I would like them to have manicures, facials, massages for the whole community and everybody, because you know the elders, you know they're going to pass away, and you want to pass on their ike to however they're going to do it. Now, in my age, I got lickings, I got slaps, I got slippers, I got the ruler. You couldn't talk back like the kids nowadays is lazy. They're on their cell phone, they don't want to work hard, they don't want to hustle. So when you have your Kapuna month, I hope they learn respect, integrity, and they have the values like Aretha Franklin taught to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what that means to me. Yeah, you. Chihu, pika pika.
Thank you. Any further testifiers, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you very much. Members, we are in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations to the motion to amend? Noting no objections or reservations, Bill 26 has been amended to the posted FD1. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 179 has been adopted and Bill 26 FD1 has passed second reading. Members, turning to the top of page 16, third reading measures. From the Committee on Transportation, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 200 be adopted and Bill 9 pass third reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam for the explanation.
Chair, this relates to transportation, amending Chapter 36, ROH 2021 to repeal certain obsolete or unnecessary provisions.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Delaney and Ms. Thielen.
I believe that's for the next measure. Do we have any testifiers on Bill 9?
No, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me?
We don't have any other registered testifiers.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Toba? Councilmember Tupola is excused. Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the 8 ayes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. CR 200 has been adopted. Bill 9 has passed third reading. From the Committee on Zoning, Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, I move that committee report number 201 be adopted and Bill 3, Committee Draft 2 as amended, pass third reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Say for the explanation.
Relating to incentives for the construction of affordable rental housing as a post-construction grant.
Thank you very much. Members, there are multiple floor drafts that have been submitted for your consideration. Prior to accepting any motion to amend to a floor draft, I'll ask each council member to please explain their proposed floor draft. Start with Councilmember Tolba.
Thank you, Chair. The FD1 would remove a minimum unit size requirement and would allow the developer to be eligible for $12,000 for each affordable housing unit, regardless of the size of the unit. Seeing that we are in a housing crisis, removing a minimum unit size would incentivize developers to build units and build according to the needs of the community. I believe that the market will determine whether the units are too small, and at the end of the day, developers are going to build units that meet the market demand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Wire, would you please explain your floor draft?
Thank you, Chair. Our version would specify that for affordable housing units that are less than 250, rather than the current 300 square feet, the owner would be eligible to receive $40 instead of the current $15 per square foot, and to specify that housing units that are 250 rather than 300 square feet or more, the owner is eligible to receive $12,000 per affordable housing unit. I would just note, when we do have a filed FD for Bill 31, of course that's going to be in committee, but in relation to this, I think it's just a comparable to what the difference could be in terms of the grant amount. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I'll now take testimony on all versions of the bill. I note that we do have registered 2 people, Chris Delaney and Gina Thielen. So we start with Chris Delaney. Hello, welcome back. Please proceed.
Aloha Chair, Council members, Chris Delaney, Pacific Resource Partnership, strong support of Bill 3. We stand on our written testimony and support, and also we are good with either one of the proposed FD1s, as we believe that they will help to help pencil out these types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Delaney? Seeing none. Next we have Gina Thielen.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the council. My name is Gino Thielen. I am a Bill 7 developer. In the past, I've come here and peppered you with stats and square footages and numbers and budgets. Today, I'd like to offer up a different analogy, if I could. Building a Bill 7 building is a little bit like baking a cake. We, the developers, are the bakers. A lot goes into the process of us trying to figure out what type of a cake we want to build. What is the market demand? What will it cost? What can we charge for that cake? These grants that you folks are considering are the icing. They're an integral part to a successful cake. We need them. However, I would say that the square footage requirement runs counter to the concept of allowing the baker to make the decision about the cake. We don't want the people that are providing the icing generously to make that call. And that's not to say that the council shouldn't do that, because the council has city projects where you folks are the bakers. If I can just wrap up,
please proceed.
We are your discount bakers. We are Costco. We are ready to churn out units after units after units, numbering it into the hundreds. We have a very successful recipe for the 5,000 square foot lots, which are the bulk of the apartment zone lots on Oahu. And it is our opinion that for those lots, and I believe the original Bill 7 drafters' opinions, that the ideal project is a 3-story walk-up. And this square footage requirement is not compatible with that vision. In closing, I would just like to say that I think that the square footage requirement is an inequitable requirement. It's inequitable for developers. However, we don't tend to draw a lot of sympathy, usually more pitchforks and torches, but it's also inequitable for the people that are living in these units, that need these units, that are occupying these units currently. So I would urge you to move forward with Bill 3, but strike the square footage requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Gina Thielen? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have one person online.
I believe someone raised their hand from the audience. Would you like to testify? Yeah, please make your way to the podium. If there's anybody else who'd like to testify, if you can, just line up to my left of the podium. Thank you for being here. Please proceed.
Hi, I'm Annie Ocampo. I'm from Partners in Care with the Landlord Engagement Program. We're with a nonprofit organization, and so we house many families with subsidies. I'm in support of the bill because it doesn't matter what the square footage is, as long as they are in a safe environment and they're not out on the streets, as long as they're, have a clean habitat. So a bathroom, a kitchenette, which some of the properties that we've seen already that has all those amenities. So those are the more important things that we should look at. And I think the smaller the places, the more units that we can put in a building and have more people off the streets and into a home. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on. Members, any questions for the testifier? I just had one quick question. Typically, the clients that you service are at what area median income, would you say?
Yeah, so they have subsidy vouchers, which is provided by HUD. So they have Section 8 vouchers, rapid rehousing, or we have clients who have just straight income that, living in Hawaii, we don't have enough here to survive. So a lot of them are low income families. So those are the people that we serve.
Would you typically say that's around 30% AMI or below?
Yeah, or some of them are 60 to 80 AMI, just depending on their situation.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any follow-up questions, members? Seeing none, thank you so much. Do we have any other testifiers?
Aloha.
Hold on.
Is it my turn?
Any further testifiers in the chamber? Seeing none. Okay, Angela Melody Young, please proceed.
Aloha, City Council, Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong support of the proposal for additional funding sources for post-construction for affordable housing buildings. So again, I'm going to go back to HCR 85, which highlights high housing development costs and high interest rates as the biggest barriers to funding a housing project. So the focus on funding for pre-construction, post-construction stages of building, and addressing barriers in LIHTC and rental housing revolving funds are good focal points on getting more units built. So HCR 85's solution was to create credit enhancement with HHFDC and the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. Although this measure was deferred because there is no prior legislative history to grant such legal authority to HHFDC to legally impose credit enhancements, it does highlight a need to focus on policy strategies to help developers acquire funding in pre- and post-construction stages. And again, I do agree the 300 square feet number is arbitrary unless there is a federal data point that you can correlate that to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Okay, thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This particular issue now has been, I would say, not emasculated, but really massaged 3 different times. In 2019, 2021, 2023. Today, as the chair of the committee, I think for all of the members of the council, they should be aware. It is going to be a policy call on what type of dwelling units the council wants to incentivize. What types of dwelling units the council wants to incentivize. For example, if there is no size guidelines and the grant amount is a flat amount per dwelling, may I repeat that once more? For example, if there are no size guidelines and the grant amount is a flat amount per dwelling unit, this would incentivize developers and owners to build as many micro units as possible on their property. This would actually be a disincentive to build larger units than micro units. And Bill 7 was trying to address the gap group. Mom and pop homes that are consolidated into one, where the families could both live in their apartments and then rent out 1 or 2 units to subsidize their notes that they are paying for this particular project. For example, with the floor area of 5,000 square foot, you could build 20 dwelling units of 250 square foot. A 250 square foot unit. You could build 20 dwelling units, which is fine, which is a grant amount of $240,000. How did I arrive at the $240,000? Based upon what the present law is. Or you could build 10 units of 500 square foot unit, each with a grant amount of $120,000. You make the call. A micro unit that is not conducive for a family of 3. You make the call. If it's for one individual, fine. Rental. It's almost like a studio. The whole objective for this discussion today, Mr. Chair, was the fact that I was trying to achieve what is the quality of life for a particular tenant. 250 square feet, working 8 hours a day, going home and looking at a studio or a smaller than a 250 square foot facility. You make the call. What is the quality of life for an individual like that? Next, Mr. Chair, if we decide not to consider dwelling unit size, which is the square foot, when calculating the grant amount, the grant shouldn't be a flat amount also. We got to change that. And instead be based upon a square foot amount. This is how the grant amount is determined in the current ordinance, which is, one of our colleagues stated, is $11.25 per square foot for units rented to households earning more than 60% up to 100% of the AMI. And $15 per square foot for units rented to households earning 60% or less of the AMI. So the grant amount needs to be related to the dwelling unit size also in that particular case, if you are looking at it from a point of view of the AMI. $11.25 per square foot for those earning 60% to 100%. And the next $15 per square foot for units that are for households earning 50% or less. What I'm saying, Mr. Chair, is that, there is no answer to all of our housing problems. But this is supposed to be an incentive in the regentrification of those particular areas where we can do development. Mr. Chair, for me, another issue that is being brought up, which is I can appreciate, is that the dwelling unit size threshold should be changed from 300 feet to 250 square feet. And that was one of the proposals. And the grant amount should be increased from $15 to $40 a square foot for dwelling units less than the stated threshold. Please keep in mind that Bill 3 does not preclude having micro units. You can have micro units if the developer wants to in Bill 7 projects. Instead, Bill 3 only covers incentives for developers. And this is on the back end. It's a post-construction grant after the project is completed. So micro units are still eligible. And one final thought, the micro unit, 300 square foot unit, is based upon HUD. It is right now very unlikely that Bill 7 project incentives alone could finance a project targeted at households with very low income. Also, the HUD housing voucher program is for households at the lower end of the income spectrum. I believe that young lady is correct. Section 8 housing vouchers. Is that temporary? Will that be permanent? I really don't know. And for me, at this point in time, Bill 7 projects that are targeted to the 80 to 100 AMI levels is workforce housing. Let's call a spade a spade. The average household size for working families, like I stated earlier, is 3, husband and wife working. So for the most part, these working families are not looking to live in micro units or studios. As a policymaker, it's going to be each of the members that will have to make a decision that should we not be incentivizing micro units in Bill 7 projects, can we accommodate our working families? It's not just individuals, but also working families who are having a hard time. So in closing, it's been a great, fascinating journey for me, and I've enjoyed it. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy that members have submitted their floor drafts because it gives us greater discussion on what the council really wants to achieve and do. So at this point in time, I would recommend that we do support committee draft 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just kind of wanted to first kind of walk through the reasoning between our proposed amendment, and would note that I do support Councilmember Tolba's and put forward ours really to try to strike a balance. I think I keep maybe over here. I'll try to avoid the speaker going off. But really appreciate zoning chairs seeking to balance all the different discussion points we've had, and just the ideas of wanting to ensure a positive quality of life while also supporting increased units. And so definitely mahalo him and the entire zoning committee chair for that, and really wanted to put our amendment forward to just incorporate the continued conversation of the, both I shared at committee and also, the conversations we've had since. And I think we do have, a variety of ideas on different policies, and that's not a bad thing. Just in terms of Bill 3 in particular, I know that we've talked about who this, program is intended to serve, and I think at the end of the day, it's broadly just our community in its entirety. I think when those 7 projects first came forward, they were suggested as urban infill projects, right, to maximize empty spaces or underdeveloped or underutilized spaces in the urban core. I don't think it was necessarily tied directly to any particular AMI or group. I'll note that one of the least served, or in terms of our focus, in terms of program availability that's actually materialized into housing units, I think 30% AMI is actually definitely an area that we're lacking. And so whether these units are 30, 60, 80, 100, I don't necessarily think there's a preference that's needed in terms of trying to shift it from, say, 30 or 60 up to 80. While I respect the folks that have brought up the need for workforce housing, at the end of the day, I think that we need to just ensure that we're providing housing. And I know we've talked about, looking at the size, and I think looking at a grant program that's intended to incentivize housing, like that's really what we should be doing with this program. When we're talking about what's suitable for a living environment, I think that's when we look to our building code and our housing code, which both has requirements for studios and then also expanded requirements as you increase the unit, the family that's using that unit, right? As you have more rooms and more persons allowed in the unit. And so I think that's really, if that discussion is important and warranted, maybe we can revisit that or visit that in looking at the housing code and the building code. And, just finally, discussions that we've had about funding availability, right, and how quickly it's used up. If we pass these bills, right, I would be fine if it's used up by August. I think with around 60,000 people leaving Hawaii every year, every day that we delay is more people not affording to be here, fewer folks available to fill our vacancies at the city. And so, if we get it all out tomorrow, like great. And then we know maybe this program works and we can look at whether we have additional funds in the future. But in that vein, I think that, I think that Councilmember Tolba's proposal meets the same need as mine. I was trying to compromise the discussion about quality of life. And if we need more vouchers, I know that's come up in conversations too, right? Like, where are vouchers going? I mean, I'm more than happy, can't speak for our colleagues, but I'm more than happy to ensure that we put additional funding in for vouchers in next year's budget, because vouchers being used up means that local families are getting into housing. And so appreciate the conversation and all the input that's gone into these measures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Cordero, I do want to point out for members' edification, we do have the Director of Housing present if anybody has any questions. But Councilmember Cordero, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to thank the council as a whole for this discussion since the end of January. We've been mulling over this for a while now. And so I did state more of my position in committee for not having any delineation with square footage. So that remains my position as well. And as for discussing about the bill as a whole, we're talking about affordable rental housing. As we see our different neighborhoods and the types of homes that many of our neighbors live in, or ones that we all currently live in, me and my husband went from like sharing just a 1-bedroom in a house where other members of his family were sharing just 1 bedroom of less than 150 square feet. And that was just our living space, our living area, to after 10 years being able to move somewhere that is now 500 or so square feet. So looking at that, this is affordable rental housing at specific AMI points and starting off as starting points for people. So that is why I remain steadfast in my support for not having the delineation of square footage. Thank you, Chair, And thank you to all of our members for this robust discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. This is ultimately a policy call. My preference would be for the draft submitted by Councilmember Tolba, and if not that, then the draft submitted by Councilmember Wire. The overall situation that we face, the whole reason why we're having this discussion about grants for Bill 7 projects is that it's so difficult to make apartment buildings pencil out, period. This is why if you look at neighborhoods like Makiki, neighborhoods in my district along School Street, where we do have existing apartment projects, we haven't built new apartments, new small and medium-sized apartments in decades. You look at Kaka'aka and we have high-rise towers that have garnered a lot of controversy. We have tract housing out in West Oahu, but this small to medium-sized product simply hasn't happened. And so what do? We've created a program where we create incentives, we give waivers, we do all these things, and it's a program that's working. I was just at a groundbreaking for one of these Bill 7 projects. I would love nothing more than to see more of these projects all around the island because we are in a housing crisis. With regard to this issue of whether there's a threshold at 300 square feet or not, I think part of the reason why it's been so difficult to create small to medium-sized apartment units is that our policies are overly prescriptive. And I think we're taking a good step forward with the resolution that Councilmember Kiaina and I put forward on our apartment zoning, our apartment density standards in Resolution 24-148. We've encountered the problem with overly prescriptive development standards, which is why we've been discussing adaptive reuse policy. This is why the state came down with a bill this past legislative session that told us, hey, city and county, you need to redo your adaptive reuse policies. Otherwise, what we are telling you will go. And I think if you look at Bill 3 and Bill 31, it's drawing from a pool of $5 million. If we assume that half of that is going to be used on Bill 3 grants and the other half is going to be used in Bill 31 grants, that means that we would be producing, at most, 208 units. And I think those 208 units are going to be dictated, the size of those units is going to be dictated by the market. Some of them may be smaller than 300 square feet. But again, I think that's fine. I think there's going to be someone out there who is going to be willing to live in a very small space and be totally fine with it if it's affordable to them. It's better than living on the street. It's better than living in some other difficult housing situation. And I think if some developer were to come before us and say, hey, city and county, your involvement in this is $12,000 a unit. I have a proposal to build 208 units tomorrow. We would all be jumping for joy. We would all be thrilled to have 208 units produced tomorrow. And so I think that the challenge here is we are being overly prescriptive, and I think it's worth taking a chance on this and seeing if it works. To Councilmember Wire's point, if every single dollar of this program gets out there and we produce units, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive thing in the context of our housing crisis. And so, again, to summarize, my preference would be for the draft put forward by Councilmember Tolba that eliminates the threshold overall, and if not that, Councilmember Wire's draft. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, members? Councilmember Say.
No. Mr. Chair, I'm happy we are having this discussion. I am. But I wanted to state for the record, for the members of the council, is county government in the business of just giving grants or subsidies rather than what we are already doing? What are we doing? We already agree every time HHFDC approves a project, affordable housing project. How much money are we losing, Mr. Chair? If it's an affordable project, 10 years, property tax exemption for the general public to know. 10 years, revenues that are not coming in, that we need the revenues to provide for our first responders. They got the wastewater system facility charge exempt also. You've got the plan review and building permit fees exempt also. You've got the value of the park dedication requirements also. All I'm saying, are we fattening the profit line for some of these developers? If you go with the proposal based on dwelling units, I'm going to build all 250 square foot units, that doubles what we may be losing. All I'm saying, where's the balance? And we had the balance last year in January, when we had the developer at Kool-Aid Place come up with 60% affordable, subsidized by the other 40%. But they got a big, exemption and fees. All I'm saying, what is enough? Is county government in the business of loaning, not even loaning, giving money away, where you could put it someplace else or better places? If that is what the council feels is the right thing to do, it's a risk that we'll all take, like in Bill 7. I believe I shared that with you and the council, that it was only you who were here on Bill 7. We, as a freshman class of 2021, had to learn about Bill 7, Bill 1 for the appropriation the following year that was submitted by the mayor. I just don't want us to be more and more committed whereby people are making money off of county government also, Mr. Chair. And that is why the thresholds are in place. 300 square foot and above, you get a higher grant. 200, well, one of them had a 250, but 250, I don't know if that's a reasonable unit to live in. So in closing, you've got park dedication, development exemptions, setbacks, et cetera. And finally now, the grants. It's your taxpayers' money. I'm just protecting the interests of our general public at large, the taxpayers too. And why is it broken? I always thought that any developer has to go before the banks to get a financial loan. Am I not correct? And if the financial loan cannot be packaged because the project cannot fulfill its obligation as far as meeting that requirements, revise the plan. Revise the project instead of asking us for the handout. That's the concern I have. I share with you this afternoon because it is something that is going to come back to the council to address again. Because, yes, housing is a crisis. But I don't believe that a crisis of a housing shortage should also take into consideration the quality of life. How many of us would like to live in a 200 square foot unit? How many of us? And I don't want to see it 5 years from now, 10 years, oh, we made a mistake. Yeah, we're not getting the type of renters we want in this 250 square foot unit. That's the concern. Flexibility, you have no control over, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair. We don't have any control over the flexibility if you give that as part of the ordinance. That's what I'm trying to address, that we still have control of our destiny in regards to public housing. But, like I said to the members, there's no LIHTC. Talking to HHFDC, because most of it was earmarked to what project did this full council support? KPT and renewal to finance the project too. Why do everybody come before us for LIHTC? Not LIHTC, but 21H. All of these exemptions that I just shared with you. So in closing, if it is possible, Mr. Chair, I don't know how we can work on it further, but I think we should understand the fiscal implications of what we passed today. And if it is possible to have it recommitted back to the committee for further discussion on the two other FDs, I'll be happy to.
Thank you. Well, let's see if we can get through this today. That's my hope, is that we get through this matter today. Any further before
yes.
I move on? I do have some questions for our Director of Housing, Councilmember Kia.
Well, while I can appreciate the dialogue, we have been through this process for quite a while, and I would have preferred that any substantive amendments would have been considered and dealt with at the council, at the committee level. And so while I would have preferred that this measure moved forward today, for final reading, I am more inclined now to recommit it back to the committee and we deal with these proposed amendments at committee.
Thank you. Before I call on you, Councilmember Tolba, can we have the Director of Housing answer a few questions? So I was here in 2019 when the original Bill 7 was passed. And I think Bill 7 actually modified a previous version. And the idea really was, in my recollection, to stimulate workforce housing so that between 80% AMI and 100% AMI for example, city and county employees, families. But I want to double check that with you, Director. Is that your recollection as well? What was the purpose of the original Bill 7?
Thank you very much for the question. Denise Usari Matsubara, Office of Housing. I wasn't here when Bill 7 first started, but my understanding from the read of the bill was it targeted a certain AMI threshold, and it was 100% AMI and below. So that is my understanding of Bill 7, just from the lay read of the bill. And at 100% AMI, although it does go down to below 60% AMI, just logically speaking, and in my experience in dealing with the LIHTC program, you really cannot make those type of projects pencil at the 60% AMI below without a whole lot of subsidy and without really LIHTC. So in my mind, it's more targeted towards the gap group at about 80 to 100% AMI.
Okay, that was my original my recollection of the original purpose of Bill 7. That doesn't mean, members, that we can't change that and say we don't want to target that group, and we could target 30% AMI if we'd like. But let's just talk about workforce housing for a second. Typically, what type of units does 300 square foot produce? We're not talking 3-bedroom units, right? For 300 square feet.
Generally speaking, at 300 square feet, you're normally talking about a studio.
About a studio. And one, possibly two people typically live in a studio. Is that accurate?
I believe that's fair to say it's accurate.
And probably too crowded to, say, have a family with a child or 2 children in a studio, right? For workforce housing, I'm talking about.
It may be a little tight.
Okay. What is the average household size of working families, if you know?
I'm not sure for working families, but I can tell you just from the DBED, they released highlights of the census, and I think based on a 5-year highlight for the year 2018 to 22, average household size was 2.9, something like that.
Okay. I mean, again, if we're targeting workforce housing, that size really doesn't fit, right? A 300 square foot unit based on the average for working families, right?
Well, if we're looking at average household size and looking at just the studios, then yeah, but I would think you'd have a combination.
Okay, thank you.
A variety.
Could I ask Gina Thielen a question? Thank you so much. And by the way, I think everybody here really appreciates the hard work that you do and your explanation. But I do want to share my concerns that if we don't have a distinction between, and by the way, you agree that I think under revised ordinance 29-1.2 that 300 square feet and below is considered a micro unit, right?
I don't know that there is a uniform agreed upon concept of a micro unit. I have not run across it, but you could very well be right, but I haven't seen it myself.
I can have staff provide you with the actual ordinance if you'd like, and we can revisit that question. But What you're asking us to do is take away the barrier or the difference between a 300 square foot unit above and below, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and right now, under the bill, what is provided to the developer under your proposal is $12,000 in subsidies, in cash, basically, per unit that you build, right?
That is correct.
And I guess my concern is that if you otherwise would build a one-bedroom and get $12,000 per unit, now you subdivide that and build 2 studios. Now you're getting double the amount in the same space that you otherwise would have a one-bedroom, right?
That mathematically is correct, but that is not how we would arrive at the unit size. And that's why if you look at the portfolio of projects that we have in various progress in terms of permitting and design, more than 50% of our units are over 300 square feet.
That's good to know. But in the future, not necessarily all developers are going to do what you're doing. Wouldn't it make more economic sense for a developer if you build smaller units and more of the units so that you could gain more subsidy from this program?
No, because you're limited to the number of units under Bill 7. Essentially, you get 5 units per every 1,000 square feet, so 1 unit per 200 square feet. So there's really no way for you to increase the unit count in a building beyond what it would be otherwise. In addition, if I can go back to the cake analogy for a minute, nobody wants to make all one-size cake because you're going to run out of people that are going to use it. So what we have found in our projects to date is that I would say with the smaller units, about 30% of the people are what I would consider ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. And we target 80% and below. That's one of the compliance paths with Bill 7. And I would say the other 70% are people that are using housing vouchers and are very low AMI levels. And maybe it's 60-40, I'm not exactly sure. What we expect to see is in our bigger buildings where we can afford an elevator and therefore can afford more floors, we're expecting to see that ratio flip. So to answer the question about workforce housing, it is the micro units or small units, whatever you want to call them, are housing, workforce housing people that are earning below 80% AMI, but it is also serving the homeless community. So it's a broad mix of tenants. And then obviously with the larger buildings, we have, I think our 90-unit building, we have 80 one-bedrooms that are in excess of 350 square feet and 10 two-bedrooms and no studios.
I think we all recognize that there's a need for units at all price levels. And if you're going to target those who are using the vouchers, which is perfectly fine in my mind, and I'm happy personally to vote and support that. However, let me ask you this. How then are we going to incentivize developers such as yourself to be building at 100% AMI for workforce?
Well, for one thing, there's not enough vouchers. I mean, that's a given.
But I'm not sure the folks I'm talking about would be eligible. Police officers, firefighters, city and county workers who are about 80 to 100% AMI. If we're building these units, as you are, for folks who have vouchers, and we're subsidizing it. By the way, in my mind, as pointed out by Calvin Say, it's 10 years of you don't have to pay property taxes. You don't have to pay the wastewater system facility charge. You don't have to pay the plan review and building permit. You don't have to pay a park dedication. And then you have development exceptions, like you can go up to 60 feet when you otherwise would have 40 to 45 feet, reducing the setbacks. You're not required to build parking for your residents. You don't have to build elevators. And by the way, that's what I'm saying. We started from 2019, and every year we come back adding on incentives. And I'm happy to report that, we got a July 1st, 2024 letter from DPP before Bill 3 and 31 have even been passed, there's 52 projects in the pipeline. So I guess kind of making Councilmember Say's point that this is just icing on the cake. You're right. We want you to build bigger units for working families. So how do we incentivize that if we're going to incentivize this for folks making 30% AMI? And I'm really asking for your help here because I really do want to pass something today, no matter what it is.
Sure. I guess the best answer I can offer to you is I believe that you are doing that. Bill 7, when it was created, and I spent a lot of time talking with some of the original authors of the bill that put it forward, mostly Marshall Hung, and we've discussed it. And essentially what inspired him to go after Bill 7 was a trip to Japan and seeing the low-rise walk-ups that were being built there and realizing we're not building them here. And you know, just as a sidebar to the point about property tax, we have taken 2 vacant lots that nobody would build on under the Bill 7 program, and we have created 2 buildings with 51 combined units. You're right, for 10 years there's no property tax, but after 10 years, you're getting property tax on those buildings that never would have been built without Bill 7. So I think that the incentives are appropriate to the units that are being developed. I don't believe that you would incentivize developers to go to the smallest square footage possible because the overall investment we are making is really dependent on the return of rent. It isn't dependent on the grant. So the grant is the icing. The grant is what makes us be able to make the cake in this new environment with interest rates being what they are and construction costs being what they are. But at the end of the day, the grant doesn't help us rent the unit. It's up to us to design a building that people want to live in. It's up to us to design units that people want to live in. It's up to us to meet the market demand. And I believe that by creating the incentive program on top of the existing Bill 7 programs, you folks are going to incentivize a lot of construction. And yes, some of them are probably units smaller than you might want to see, but they're guaranteed big enough for a lot of the people out there that need a unit and a safe place to stay. And a lot of them are going to be large and exactly what you want to see. I'm very excited for when our Pensacola project is built and being able to have the opportunity to show you all exactly what I'm talking about because it's easier to see it when it's there. But in my opinion, it just doesn't make sense for developers to chase a $12,000 contingency at the expense of the marketability of their units.
Okay, thank you. Members, Councilmember Tolba.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to have the Director of Housing come up. I wanted to hear her thoughts on our discussion.
Absolutely. Please proceed.
Thank you very much for the question, Denise Useri-Matsubar, Office of Housing. So I think there's just a lot of good, robust discussion going on. I think what the council has before them is a decision on what do you want this program to be? Is it going to be for workforce housing? Because I can appreciate and understand the use of the vouchers to make up the difference. But we really need to decide what you want the program to be and find a reasonable subsidy to make projects work. So this post-construction projects are up already, right? They have to be built, they have to be financed. This is the incentive at the end. So the project made it to the finish line. So I think what they're looking for is an incentive to continue doing this. And of course, some of this is going to be cost recovery, right? This is what you're getting. But I think that's just the big distinction because at the 60% AMI and below and use of the housing vouchers to make up the difference in the rent amounts, because your rents between the 60% AMI and the 80% AMI is roughly $500 a month. You can charge that much more, $5,000, $6,000 more a year. At 60% to 100%, you're talking $1,000 more in rent. So you have different income levels, different rent levels. When you're using those vouchers for these more moderate income housing projects, you may be taking some of that away from your LIHTC or public housing projects. Some of the LIHTC projects right now are having a hard time lease up. So Kokua Holly is a good example. It's down the street here. It's a LIHTC project. I think they have similar sized studios. So they're having problems fill up their vacancies. You have Hale Vaiolo, which is another LIHTC project. It's on River Street. So they have studios as well that run, you know, similar size all the way up to maybe like 350 square feet or so. So you have to think about your target market as hard as it is, and the realization that we need housing for all the spectrums. But the beauty of this Bill 7, and this is the really important thing for the city, it's the only by right housing program that we have, and it's one of the few gap income group, you know, the 80 to 100% AMI. And so you really got to decide, do you want it to try and satisfy all? Or do you want it to try and address this gap group that really the state doesn't have a program? The city, if there's a way we can figure out what that right amount is, this is what the city could be known for, helping our workforce with a workforce housing program. It's just we have to make the, you know, help the developers succeed. We have to figure out what that amount is. I think the discussion is going in the right direction, and I really want to thank the chair for leading it that way. But that's your opportunity, I think, that you have before you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Mahalo, Director. I just had a quick question, and appreciate all the work you're doing. How many more vouchers do we think we need? Like 500, and I'm just throwing out random numbers, but I totally understand what you're saying. Like, we have other programs that maybe need vouchers, so I'm open to whatever you think the community needs.
I think that's a really good question for the Department of Community Services, which is our public housing agency for the city. My understanding is we have like voucher authority for just under 5,000 vouchers, but we only have enough funds for 4,000 vouchers. And I think they come real close to using it all. They're doing a really good job. And vouchers, I think across the nation, you always don't have enough. And it's a matter of what HUD can grant you, so.
Okay, mahalo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Otherwise, what I propose to do is take a poll to see where everybody's at. But Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, you want to make a...
Yeah, well, thank you. I just have a quick question. I'd like to bring Gina Thielen back because I want to pick up on the question about splitting a unit.
Please proceed.
So thank you, Gina, for your expertise here. There's this notion that if we had a 500 square foot unit, you could subdivide it into two 250 square foot units. How much does it cost to do that sort of subdivision, to add a wall, to add an extra window, to add a kitchen or kitchenette, to add a new bathroom, to make one studio or a one-bedroom apartment into two studios?
So the easiest explanation I can offer there is that the cheapest thing to build in construction is open space. When we look at our cost, typically we look at our cost on a per unit basis, because whether you have a studio or a one bedroom, you have one kitchen, you have one bathroom, your plumbing, electrical, mechanical, all of your core function costs are based entirely on a per unit basis. So when you say how much would it cost to subdivide a 500 square foot unit into two 250 square units, it would almost double the cost. Not quite, because there are some costs that are based exclusively on square footage, such as structure or roofing or flooring. But I would say 70% of the cost or so, I'm shooting from the hip here, is related directly to the per unit cost as opposed to the square foot cost.
So I guess, is that cost greater than $12,000?
Oh, absolutely.
So would a developer, and you've worked with a number of them, decide to split a unit just to get $12,000 extra from the city?
No, no developer in their right mind would do that, nor would they size a project based on this grant. It's simply not substantial enough to warrant that kind of a decision-making. It's all about the marketability of the unit.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up questions, members? Okay, what I propose is to just take since we have so many drafts on the table, draft number 1 is CD2, proposed by the zoning committee, FD1 proposed by Councilmember Wire, and then FD1 proposed by Councilmember Tolba. So I'll start from the left going right. Councilmember, which some of you have already indicated where you're going, so I'll just do it again though. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
My preferences are in order: Tolba, Wire, underlying bill.
Okay, so Dos Santos Tam, Tolba first. Councilmember Say for your proposal.
Committee draft 2.
Okay. Councilmember Kia Aina.
Committee draft 2, and I'm not even going to say anything about the other 2 amendments because, again, I believe procedurally that should have been dealt with at committee. It was a complicated bill. We've been talking about it a lot, and that should not be discussed during the final of this consideration.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Cordero.
Floor draft number 3.
Councilmember Tolbas. Okay. Councilmember Wire.
I'd be supporting Councilmember Tolba's, then ours, and then also would be asking, or would prefer to support the CD2, then recommitting. Because I do feel like, as was mentioned, we've discussed this extensively, and so I think everyone has had their the opportunity to kind of make up their mind as to what they see as kind of the main goals and policy positions. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Okimoto.
Committee draft 2, Chair.
Okay. And Councilmember Tolba.
My draft as well, Councilmember Wire.
Okay, I'm with Councilmember Say on CD2. So we're at an impasse, 4-4. 4-4. Yeah. So I do have a floor draft that I've prepared that raises the amount of money for a micro unit from currently at 4,000 up to 6,000. Just as a possibility, because if we're at an impasse, unless somebody wants to change their vote, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Well, Chair, I think, again, I've ranked my choices. If it doesn't seem that Councilmember Tolba's version has more than 4 votes, I think that if we were to vote on Councilmember Wire's based on Councilmember Okimoto's comments and my comments and perhaps Councilmember Cordero's, there might be a majority in support of Councilmember Wire's version if we were just to have a vote on that.
Okay, I didn't read it that way.
Just to clarify, I only had support behind CD2. I didn't have any support behind the others. Just, I'm not sure where Councilmember Dos Santos Tam's. Yeah,
okay, may have heard
just
that
to clarify.
Right, I only counted 1 vote for Councilmember Wires in his own, and as a number 1 vote.
No, I was Councilmember Tolba's as the number 1 vote.
For you, correct.
And then I think multiple people had put ours second.
Yours is second,
Yeah.
right. I still don't think we get to 5. We need to get to 5 members. I have 4 for CD2 and 4 for Councilmember Tolbas. Why don't we do this? I'm going to publish and file my motion, my FD. We'll move this to the end of the calendar, take a look at it. You folks decide if this is a compromise that we can all agree upon. I'd like to try to pass the bill today if possible, rather than recommitting, if you could hold off on your motions to recommit. Yeah, let's try to keep this alive if we can. What do you guys think? Councilmember
Chair.
Kia Aina.
Chair, just given the time frame, then I ask that we consider a recess for lunch, and then we will come back to consider the rest of the items as well as your proposed FD1.
Perfect. Okay, members, let's come back at 2 o'clock, 1 hour. Okay, we're in recess. Thank you, members.